It all started on a clear autumn morning. I had been planning this hiking trip for months, just me, my backpack, and the trails. I wanted to disconnect from everything: work, social media, the constant noise of life. There was a trail I had never tried before, deep in the forest near the edge of a small town. Locals had warned me that it was isolated, that hikers sometimes got lost, but I shrugged it off. I'd hiked alone before without incident. The first few hours were perfect. The sun filtered through the trees, casting long, golden patterns on the forest floor. The crisp air smelled like wet leaves and pine, and I could hear the distant call of birds. My steps were quiet, almost hypnotic, and I felt free. That feeling of being alone in nature, just me and the trail, was intoxicating. About 2 hours in, I realized I had wandered off the main path. The trail markers were fewer, and the undergrowth was thick, scratching at my legs. I knew I should turn back, but curiosity pushed me forward. Something about the forest called me deeper. The sounds of civilization were gone now. No cars, no voices, just the occasional rustle of animals. Then I heard it. At first it was subtle, a faint snapping of a branch. I stopped and listened. The forest was quiet again, probably just a deer. I tried to laugh it off and continued. But the sound came again, closer this time. Snap, snap, like someone stepping carefully, trying not to make a sound. My heartbeat quickened. I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" No response. I tried to convince myself it was my imagination, but a creeping unease settled in. Every step I took seemed amplified. I noticed something strange, footprints in the soft earth. They weren't mine, and they weren't animal tracks. Human. Barefoot, heading in the same direction I was walking. I froze. The rational part of my mind said, "It's probably another hiker," but another voice whispered, "You're alone. You've been alone all this time." I looked around, scanning the trees. No one, but I could feel it. Eyes, maybe dozens of them, watching. My skin crawled. I decided to keep moving. I needed to reach the summit before nightfall, but every few minutes I heard it again. The snapping, the rustling, the whisper of steps following mine. I picked up my pace. My legs burned, but adrenaline kept me going. I didn't look back, but I could sense movement behind me, keeping pace. I finally reached a small clearing. I stopped to catch my breath, trying to convince myself it was just a hiker, maybe a local scouting the trail. Then I heard a voice, a whisper, barely audible, coming from the edge of the clearing. "Hey!" I froze, every nerve in my body screaming. I turned slowly, and there was no one. Nothing. Just the forest. My rational mind said maybe it was the wind, the trees creaking, an echo, but my gut screamed otherwise. Something was out there, something that had been following me. Panic set in. I turned back toward the trail, trying to retrace my steps. That's when I realized something terrifying. The footprints, the ones I had seen earlier, they weren't just following me, they were circling me now. I could see them forming a wide, deliberate arc around where I was standing. I ran. I don't remember thinking about safety or direction. I just ran. Branches lashing my arms, roots trying to trip me, my backpack digging into my shoulders. The forest seemed to stretch endlessly. The sunlight dimmed faster than it should have, and shadows grew unnaturally long. Then I saw movement, a figure far ahead, tall, thin, standing perfectly still, watching me. I couldn't see a face, just a dark outline between the trees. My chest tightened. My legs moved on their own, faster and faster. Every time I glanced behind me, the shadows seemed to shift, as if more figures had appeared. I didn't stop. I stumbled, twisted my ankle, and fell. My backpack hit the ground, scattering water bottles and snacks. I lay there for a second, gasping, trying to decide if I should get up. That's when I heard it again. A whisper, directly behind me this time. "Don't leave." I jumped up, ignoring the pain in my ankle, and bolted. Eventually, I saw the faint glow of a road in the distance. Relief washed over me. I reached it, collapsing onto the asphalt, panting and trembling. I turned back toward the forest. The trees were still, silent. No figures, no movement, nothing. I told myself it was over, that I was safe. But as I caught my breath and looked down at my shoes, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Footprints, barefoot, starting from the forest and stopping just at the edge of the road. I never went back. I never tried that trail again. And sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I can still hear the faint snap of branches, the whispering of the forest, calling my name. Because the truth is, you're never really alone in the woods, It was supposed to be the perfect weekend getaway. 3 friends, me, Ryan, and Brooke, had rented a small cabin deep in the woods of northern Washington. Brooke had found it on a local listing site, advertised as a quiet off-grid escape with no cell service, no distractions, and no neighbors for miles. At first, that sounded perfect. We were all exhausted from work, from screens, from people. The plan was simple. Arrive Friday night, grill, hike, and just relax until Sunday. The drive there was already unsettling. The farther we went, the narrower the road became. The pavement gave way to gravel, then to dirt, until eventually the trees on both sides were so dense that daylight barely filtered through. There were no signs, no houses, not even a mailbox. Just forest. By the time we reached the cabin, the sun was setting, painting the sky a deep orange red that faded behind the tree line. The cabin itself looked older than in the pictures. Weathered wood, a single window on each side, and a small porch that leaned slightly. Inside, it was simple. 2 rooms, a small kitchenette, and 1 bedroom with an old queen-sized bed. The air smelled faintly of smoke and pine. The place didn't have power, so we used battery lanterns. No Wi-Fi, no phone signal. That first night was quiet, too quiet. We sat around a small fire, talking about old times. The forest around us was pitch black, the kind of darkness where even your flashlight beam seemed to dissolve after a few feet. There were no sounds of crickets or owls, just silence. Around midnight, we all went to sleep, Brooke and I in the bed, and Ryan on a small cot near the window. Sometime during the night, I woke up suddenly. No reason, just that strange feeling of being awake when you shouldn't be. The cabin was completely still. I could hear my own breathing, and something else. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, heavy footsteps on the wooden porch outside. At first, I thought it was Ryan going to the outhouse, but then I saw his silhouette lying motionless near the window. The steps creaked closer, right up to the door, then silence. I held my breath. Brooke stirred beside me but didn't wake. I stared at the door, waiting for a knock or a sound. Anything. Then I heard the faint scrape of nails against the wood, like someone slowly dragging their fingers down the door. I wanted to wake the others, but I couldn't move. I just lay there, frozen. After what felt like forever, the sound stopped. I stayed awake until dawn, staring at that door, half expecting it to open at any second. When morning came, I finally worked up the courage to check outside. The porch was empty, but the dirt below the steps had footprints, bare feet, large. I didn't say anything to Brooke or Ryan at first. I didn't want to freak them out. I just told them we should keep the fire going at night, maybe stay alert. They laughed it off, thinking I was joking. That evening we hiked a little, but we didn't go far. Every direction looked the same. Endless trees, moss, and silence. We made it back just before dark. Brooke started cooking, and Ryan chopped firewood. We decided to lock the door that night and keep a lantern on inside. The unease in the air was thick. Even our laughter sounded forced. At around 2 a.m., it started again. A soft creak on the porch, then another. Brooke woke up this time. Ryan was already sitting upright on his cot, staring at the window. The sound of footsteps moved slowly along the front wall, then stopped right outside the window beside Ryan. He whispered, "There's someone out there." We didn't move, didn't breathe. Then we heard tapping, light, rhythmic tapping on the glass. 1, 2, 3. Ryan's shaking hand reached for his flashlight. He flicked it on and pointed it at the window. For a split second, we saw it. A face, pale, smiling, too close to the glass. Ryan screamed and fell backward. The light flickered and went out. Brooke started crying. I grabbed the lantern, but before I could move, the handle on the door twisted. Slowly, deliberately. I shouted, "Who's there?" No answer. Just the sound of the handle rattling harder, then banging, loud, violent pounding that made the whole cabin shake. Ryan ran to the corner, grabbed the hatchet we brought for firewood. I could barely think. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I moved toward the door, ready to block it with the table, and then it stopped. Total silence. No banging, no footsteps. Just the echo of our own breathing. We waited for what felt like an hour before daring to peek outside. The night was calm again. Nothing moved. But when I looked at the dirt near the porch steps, there were dozens of barefoot prints now. Small ones, large ones. Like a group had been standing out there, watching. We didn't sleep. We packed up at sunrise, deciding to leave early. The road back was rough, but I didn't care. I just wanted out. Halfway down the trail, we passed an old wooden sign we hadn't noticed before, nearly hidden by vines. It had faded white letters that read, "Private land, no trespassing." Below it, in smaller carved letters, something else. "Property of the Finch family, 1956. Ryan frowned. "Finch? Isn't that the same name from that listing site? The owner?" We checked later when we got back into town. The listing was gone. The profile that posted it had been deleted. A few weeks later, I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I did some digging. According to county records, the cabin had burned down in 1993. Electrical fire. 3 people had died inside, a husband, wife, and their teenage son. But here's the thing. That wasn't the weird part. The weird part was that no one had rebuilt it. The land had been abandoned for decades, so whatever cabin we stayed in wasn't supposed to be there. And those barefoot prints that circled us that night, they weren't from the living. Because some places, no matter how peaceful they seem, they never really let go of the people who died there. I used to work as a park ranger in Montana. I loved it, the quiet, the smell of pine, the solitude. But after what happened on my last night shift, I can't step foot in a forest anymore. It was early November, the kind of night when the cold feels alive, biting, restless. I was assigned to the North Watchtower, the farthest outpost in the entire reserve. It was at least 20 miles from the ranger station, surrounded by dense forest and cliffs that dropped into an endless valley. Usually the tower was manned by 2 people, but my partner called in sick. So it was just me that night. I didn't mind. I'd done plenty of solo shifts before. The shift started at 7 p.m. I stocked up on coffee, grabbed the radio, and climbed the narrow steps to the top of the tower. The forest below was completely black, just a moving sea of trees in the wind. From up there, I could see for miles, or at least I should have. That night, a heavy fog had settled low over the valley, thick and pale, like a living thing creeping between the trees. Around 9 p.m., the static on the radio crackled. "Tower 4, come in." It was my supervisor, Hank. "Copy," I said. "Got a report from a camper near Ridge Creek. They said they saw lights moving through the trees. Could be poachers. Keep an eye out." "Got it," I said, scanning the forest. Ridge Creek was about 2 miles east of my tower, too far to see clearly, but close enough that I could get there if needed. For the next hour, nothing happened. The wind picked up, howling against the tower's frame. Then, out of the fog, I noticed something. A faint light flickering between the trees. It wasn't a flashlight beam. It was dimmer, more like a lantern glow. I grabbed my binoculars, but all I could make out was movement. Slow, rhythmic, like someone walking in circles. I radioed in. "This is Tower 4. I've got eyes on a light near Ridge Creek, single source moving erratically." Static. Then Hank's voice. "Copy. Could be a lost hiker. Check it out, but be careful. We had reports of cougar sightings that way last week." I didn't like the idea of leaving the tower alone, but it was protocol, so I grabbed my flashlight, rifle, and radio and started down the trail. The forest was silent, except for the crunch of my boots. The fog was thicker now, almost solid. My flashlight beam barely reached 5 feet ahead. Every so often I'd hear faint movement off the trail, something shifting, snapping twigs, probably animals. That's what I told myself anyway. After about 15 minutes, I reached Ridge Creek, a shallow stream that cut through the forest. The water shimmered faintly under the fog. And then I saw it, that same light, flickering on the opposite bank. I called out, "Park Ranger, do you need help?" No response. I crossed the creek slowly, the freezing water soaking into my boots. As I got closer, I realized the light wasn't moving anymore. It was just hanging there. When I finally reached it, I stopped cold. It wasn't a lantern. It was a candle jammed into the hollow of a tree trunk. Beside it was a small wooden carving, a figure, roughly human-shaped, with something written on it in charcoal. I leaned closer and saw my own name carved into the wood. I froze. My name. My full name. I backed away, scanning the darkness. "Who's there?" I shouted. My voice came out shaky, swallowed by the fog. No answer. Then I heard it, from somewhere deeper in the woods. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling me. I turned the flashlight toward the sound, but the fog reflected it back at me, like a mirror. I couldn't see more than shadows, but I could hear breathing, heavy, ragged, close. I raised my rifle and shouted again, "Show yourself!" Silence. Then a whisper, almost in my ear, though no one was there. "Go back." Someone was standing at the edge of the fog, tall, motionless, watching. They didn't move, didn't chase. They just stood there as I climbed the steps 2 at a time. Once inside, I locked the door, sat in the corner, and waited for dawn. Every creak of the wood made me flinch. The fog pressed against the windows like a living wall. Around 4 a.m., I must have dozed off because I woke up to the sound of tapping, slow, rhythmic tapping, right outside the tower window. When I turned, I froze. Handprints, dozens of them, pressed against the glass from the outside. But the tower was 40 feet above ground. That was when I completely lost it. I radioed Hank, screaming into the static, "There's something out here! Someone's watching me!" But the only response was a soft, distant whisper that came through the radio speaker. "Go back." I threw the radio aside and waited for sunrise. When it finally came, the fog lifted slowly, revealing the forest below. Nothing moved. The handprints were gone. I hiked down the mountain at first light and drove straight to the station. When I told Hank what happened, he didn't say anything for a long time. Then he sighed and said quietly, "You're not the first ranger to see them." I stared at him. "What are you talking about?" He leaned back in his chair and looked at the floor. "There's a reason we rotate shifts at that tower every few months. Last guy who worked it before you, he quit after one night. Said he found wooden figures carved with his name too." I asked if anyone ever figured out who was doing it. Hank just shook his head. "We stopped asking a long time ago. I quit the next day. It's been 5 years since that night. I live in the city now, far away from any forest. But sometimes, when fog rolls in thick and white, I swear I can still hear that whisper, faint, right behind me. Go back. And when I look over my shoulder, I swear I see a flicker of candlelight.